you want about Marshall Rankin, but walking up to somebody's door and randomly knocking on somebody's door to want to talk to them about politics, either you're stupid or you got big balls. And I'm willing to admit that Marshall's got big balls. So, never insult somebody who's willing to randomly knock on your door to talk to you about politics. And I've had my door knocked on by our local senator, even. And I was like, "What are you knocking on my door for?" She's like, "Oh, I'm your local senator." I was like, "Oh my gosh, like you're a real person now. I'll always remember you." So, uh, you know, I can't get to all these towns. There's about 600,000 people in 16th district. And if you go to johnforcongress.com, you can see the top towns, and it will require a lot of work getting these signatures. So for every dollar you give me, I will match it. So if we've already hit 500 bucks today because we've raised over 250. So any dollar you give me, I will match out of my personal bank account, and I'll be fully transparent. I'll even show you the receipts, and we will do this communication marketing endeavor together. It'll be the most fun you have on Clown House, I promise.
I'll tell you, if you get Trump to drop the charges against Snowden, that will be more than what I bargained
for. Got it.
Way more.
Or just room and board, every other expense, including
hey, Rick,
back home.
You want to give $1 to the campaign, Rick?
Room and board for a week, and all of the surrounding areas of on the south side of my mom and my aunts, my cousins, my brother, and his business and his friends' businesses. I'll knock on every one of those doors, John, but not free. I can take care of me to a certain extent, but I'll do that.
Kitty, what about a bake sale? I hear you're incredible with cookies.
Yeah, but in Chicago, I do really like making cookies, but I don't think that's gonna that's not really gonna work. I mean, maybe in the South, but that's not gonna help him. Like, he needs people, like physical people there, on the ground, or money. He needs money, or he needs somebody to not. I mean, like, I can give out cookies. I get some cookies out. I'd send you a whole mess of cookies, but that's just because you're my favorite black person on this app. Mojo.
I love the patriotism that's in the air. Everybody's willing to help. Harry, you were going to say?
I'm going to say John could probably put some ads on eBay or something on Craigslist. Or not eBay, sorry, Craigslist, and ask people to get ballots signed for them, or I'm sure you can find people that will volunteer. Also, there's always people that are willing to volunteer if they actually really believe in your views and your cause.
Yeah, there's an organization called Young Americans for Liberty that we'll connect with to see. They have a trained group of young activists that believe in reducing the debt. And if they're available in his area, then you can basically, the donation money, he would make a donation to Yao, and then Yao would provide the door knockers. Those are really high quality door knockers. If we can't get Yao to get on the team, then I'll fly out to Chicago myself and train people. When I was working with the Libertarian Party, I trained door knockers that knocked at least 1 million doors in 2021.
He's got spare property. You can put me up, John, and you know that I.
Yeah, I do have.
Whatever you're not. Yeah,
I can sleep.
You
I can provide housing and an office to up to 4 people with this campaign.
Not that. Well, I'll talk to you later. I can probably I'll figure it out. I'll be there. I got you,
John. Speaking of libertarians, I'm looking at an X post by Being Libertarian. It says the U.S. just hit $37 trillion in debt. When the Tea Party began protesting the national debt, $9 trillion sounded unbelievable. And then they wrote, "We are boiled frogs."
I'll connect you with the local libertarians out there. There's a mixed group. There's some that are like really lefty libertarians that won't help you very much, but then there's some on the right side. John, are you familiar with a networking organizer in the city of Chicago by the name of Tony P? He does Tony P events. Are you familiar with him?
Maybe. If I saw a business card, then probably.
Okay, I'm going to connect you with him as well. Typically it's business oriented, but he's starting to get more political. So I'll at least arrange a meeting so you guys can hook up and figure out how his network might be able to benefit you.
Yeah, I've met some libertarian leader here who passes out, 3x5 flyers at the local Polish fest, and I liked him, but his body odor at that precise moment was a little overwhelming.
He's Polish, man.
Was that Dan Lewis by chance?
I'd have to go through my business card binder to find his business card. I can't remember his name.
Good try.
Well, if I could offer anything to you in this room, it would be to take the deepest breath of the day, hold it for 10 seconds, let it go, and say, fork it over for Kitover. Click that link above and give 10 not 11, 10 not $9 right now to the campaign to elect John Kitover. Your money has already been spent. We've put up 3 ads on Craigslist trying to find on-the-ground support and political consultants on a contract basis. Again, click that link above and give 10 not 11, 10 not $9 right now so you can also enjoy this fun experience of trying to get on the ballot in March of 2026. This is your campaign. Speak up now or forever hold your peace. Harry, how would you describe what you typically hear in an Amir room? The homicidal ideation, I'm so glad October 7th happened. That was the greatest thing. Praise October 7th. Shit like that. When you hear people praising death, murder, chaos, like, how does that make you feel?
Honestly, it makes me feel very worried because some of these people are here in America. And, a prime example of those type of people is like that guy in Boulder, Colorado not too long ago. These are either sleeper terrorists that are here in the country or they're very, or organized together. And I think this is just a platform for them to organize openly in the public and recruit openly as well. So I think it's a very dangerous thing that, I guess they're being glanced over. And that was going to be one of my questions for you was what would you do if you did get to Congress? How would you combat this radical Islam movement we're seeing in America right now?
Well, there are 2 people I would call. One is your local IRS criminal investigator. And I would make sure that wherever that person is on this social audio app, where they live, that IRS criminal investigator or that local FBI agent that trained at Quantico would go knock on that person's door and say, hey, we want to talk with you and we want to play you a recording and, conduct an investigation into this person's mental health status, whether or not, he has a cache of weapons, what other communications they might be doing. There's a lot of surveillance, covert, the Stingray system. There's so many ways to find out what else, they're communicating to see if they're involved in planning potential terrorist attacks or if they're just terrorist promoters. But I don't know what direct legislation can be used to limit people's freedom of speech, but when it comes down to planning attacks, extremely vulgar and crude hate speech, just the social justice alone, or creating a Jew hate database website or some type of government website to identify these people and call them out and get some social justice and social shame, ushered upon them so their friends and family know that they are spewing and promoting hate speech. It's that type of activity which could have positive benefits.
I like that, John. I think that's a great idea, and I think more people should be involved in that and be alert because I think Americans are very, very much in a bubble and feel very protected by living here in this great country. So I think it's important that we all keep our eyes open, and that room is a prime example of that, and it's every single day, all day long, and they literally promote terrorism in that room. And that's a federal offense at one point. There's freedom of speech. There's a line between freedom of speech and breaking the law.
So, and they're on a very fine thin line there with some of the stuff that's being said. So, but yeah, I'm glad that you are aware of it and made other people aware, John, because I don't think a lot of people like in these rooms and JB's rooms and Mojo's rooms were aware of these people that are on this app. A lot of people are just really designated to this side of the app and don't really see the terrorist side of the app, I guess you could say.
So I'm looking at Thomas Massey's X account. He posted a video of his U.S. national debt clock, and he wrote, "Thanks to the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, the debt just officially passed the 37 trillion mark." Somebody wrote in the comments, "I thought it happened last week on the debt clock website. It's actually closer to 38 trillion now." Massey wrote, "That website is inaccurate. My debt badge syncs to a website called fiscaldata.treasury.gov/datasets." So he's pulling from a Treasury API.
Would you be for having Doge in your state, like having them, overlook county funding and state funding on local levels? I know here in Florida that they're starting to do that. Looking into county funding in certain counties here in Florida. So I was wondering if that's something that you would be opposed to or for.
100%. I think there's absolutely no transparency into the acquisition and purchasing process of our state. I've worked at the federal level where I've used acquisition platforms to do contracting and make multi-million dollar purchases on behalf of the federal government. And I can tell you that that information is not transparent at all for the taxpayers. I mean, if you're voting for Darren LaHood in the 16th district and you have no transparency whatsoever, into how your vote is playing out into acquisition and spending and contracting. I mean, there's absolutely, your vote is not tied to any type of transparency outcome. So I think forensic accounting and transparency and posting a public ledger in terms of what the government is actually spending and allocating your tax dollars to should be a part of, a blockchain, you might call it, and have real transparency on where your tax dollars are going and even how your vote correlates to that.
So, John, I just have a question. Who do you think would be the ideal candidate for 2028 at this point? Because in my opinion, the best one is Steve Bannon.
Is it his skin condition that you like so much? What is it about Steve Bannon that gets you so excited, Necro?
Just in general, it's a lot of the reasons why, like, to me, he's the kind of guy you could enjoy seeing on TV, regardless of whether or not you like him. He's, a good entertainer, in my opinion. And that's kind of, to me, is like, to have, like, someone in MAGA. I think Steve, granted, he actually arguably is the one who created MAGA itself. I don't think he would ever win, but I think he would be like, the best option. He would be, to me, the most entertaining to watch.
Well, based on a survey on this app or that I saw on X, I think the number one vote was JD Vance.
Yeah, I saw it, but it's interesting though. Steve Bannon was higher than Ron DeSantis. I think Ron DeSantis is officially done when it comes to on the national level. He's kind of like Ted Cruz 2.0, essentially.
Well, I think that Steve Bannon news articles about him wanting to run for president, it's all fake news. It's just clickbait. So I wouldn't worry about it, Necro.
Yeah, no, it's interesting though. I said in the chat that Republican, I can see having some possibility of being the nominee, although I don't think she will be. But one I would see myself potentially voting for. And if she was on the ballot, I think it would be almost certain I would vote for her, but Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah, people really like Tulsi. I think Kennedy will also make a run for the presidency.
Yeah, I mean, Kennedy, if he ran for president, I would have preferred that over him being over in the health department. Because it's like on every other issue, I agree with him. Like on corruption in like on war and on housing, I agree with him on a lot of his issues mainly.
Well, the Medicare Medicaid expenditure is out of control, and I would just encourage everybody in this room, to take a deep breath, hold it for 10 seconds, and if you can stand up and lift your hands to the heavens and take a big stretch, lean to the right, lean to the left, lean back, lean forward, maybe touch your toes, stretch those hamstrings, because flexibility is very important. And you know what happens after a 25-year war, where you invade multiple countries? Guess what? You get debt. And you know how populations deal with their economy after wars and pandemics? You got to stay healthy. You got to stay strong. You got to exercise. You got to stretch and breathe. Otherwise, we're never going to be able to pay down this debt. That's why I need you as healthy as possible so you can continue working for as long as possible to keep paying into the taxation system to pay down the debt, even though we're not paying down the debt. We're just borrowing more on your behalf. But that's okay. I need you healthy and strong, flexible, and ready to get back to work.
Reminds me of my impersonation of J.D. Vance. Is like, we need to incentivize more people to get involved in childcare. It's like, how do you supposed to do that? Well, grandma and grandpa can help pick up the slack. It's like, what about people who don't have that? Okay, good.
Okay, is there anybody else that wants to ask any other questions? Master, Pocket, Serendipity, Hakima, Harry, Daniel, Necro, Kitty, Nye, Mojo?
I'm curious. I don't know if you want to go down this path, but curious what you did in the military.
Yeah, I went to the Citadel Military College of South Carolina. I have an undergraduate degree in business administration. I was magna cum laude, I think, 3.7, or is that just magna laude? I got a lot of scholarships while I was in school, and I ran for junior class president. While I was in school, I witnessed 2 planes bring down 3 skyscrapers in Manhattan on 9/11 while I was in the boathouse on the university about to check out a boat for the weekend. And I joined the Army National Guard in March of 2022. My college roommate came back to our dorm room and said, "Hey, I just signed a contract with the Army Department." I said, "Oh, what did they give you?" And so I said, "That seems like a pretty good deal. I can't have a job here and I got to pay for tuition, so maybe I'll join the Army National Guard." I didn't do active duty, so they had something called the SMP program, Simultaneous Membership Program. That summer, I went to Fort Benning, Georgia, and did infantry training for 4 months, advanced infantry training, with a whole lot of soldiers from all around the United States, from every major city. Some people were there because they were troublemakers. Some people were there because they were gung-ho patriotic Americans that wanted to defend this country from Islamic terrorists. And some people didn't even belong there, but they were there. And a lot of those people that I was with and the training cadre that trained these thousands of people were Gulf War veterans and Somali Mogadishu veterans. And those people went to Iraq and invaded Iraq and fought to the death to take over, Afghanistan and then Iraq. So I was infantry. I have the blue cord on my Class A's, and after that I went back to college and I studied abroad in Australia for half a year, and then I went back to Charleston, South Carolina, finished up my undergrad, got commissioned as an Army intelligence officer, and I finished up at Fort Huachuca, Arizona, working on linguistics and interrogations.
Okay, so are you a polyglot, or do you know more than two languages?
Nam nam and a bada shwe Arabi.
By the way, John, are you also a Chicago native?
I am. I was born in Chicago, and my dad was a cop here for 30 years.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was, I was almost born in Scotland.
Yeah, I'm gonna get with Mom tomorrow morning and see whatever I can do to help, and just let me know if there's anything, But she's really active in the church and stuff, and my brother, all my aunts. That's your bake sale people, Mojo. But I'm rooting for you and for the city of Chicago.
Thanks. I know you're big into social media, so please follow me on X. I need as many followers as possible. Anybody in this room that has X, follow me right now. It's John Kitover, IL for Illinois. That's JOHNKITOVERIL. Follow me there and retweet some of the content I post. Retweet the donation link, and hopefully your friends and family, if you endorse me, we'll give $1 to $10 to $200 to $500, and then we can really have some fun. Because if we can spend money on advertising, and I'm willing to shoot the videos in a suit and a tie with my American Legion cap on in front of the American flag, and read really interesting, intelligent, and maybe controversial statements that we can advertise to the voters in the 16th district and see how they respond to controversial statements. Like maybe the government shouldn't have spent $3 trillion on the COVID-19 vaccine response, or they shouldn't be borrowing $2 trillion a year and spending $7 trillion a year. So, saying things like that, or, hey, want to lower your property taxes? Hey, want to stop paying so much state income tax and federal income tax? There's a lot of messaging and a lot of work that can be done, but without your dollars, creating all that content will never get seen unless we can go to Meta or Google and buy ads in the district. And I've been buying ads my whole life and doing media buying, so there will be no cost associated with buying these ads other than the actual clicks themselves.
Another question I have, John, what are your thoughts about JD? You were in the military. What are your thoughts about JD Vance's characterization of Tim Walz as a disgrace?
Tampon 10. He's making tampon 10.
Because I understand, as much as that you disagree with him, would you think that it's fair for him to be called a disgrace?
Maybe. I mean, JD Vance is a Marine, and Marines are pretty badass. So I would be less concerned about JD Vance, maybe more concerned about Pete Booty Juice, aka Booty Judge, who is a special appointment CIA officer who went to a 2-week indoctrination course, never went to ROTC, never did basic, never did any kind of advanced training. But, there could be, a DEI LGBTQ initiative for certain people if you, perform a certain way and you are involved sexually a certain way. You might get special appointment preference if you, are LGBTQ. I'm just saying.
Gotcha. I mean, it's interesting. It's like JD Vance is the one who's the most popular right now. But I mean, I just have a question. Like, who do you think, if he was to run against, if it was between him and Marco Rubio as the Republican nominee, regardless of who wins, who do you think would be more likely to win over the majority of the country?
Who? It's not just if it's JD Vance and Marco Rubio, or Marco Rubio and JD Vance. I mean, who are the Democratic candidates? Is it California? What's his face with his hair and somebody else? I mean, so, anyways, Necro, like, I'm getting exhausted with the Q's and A's, and I've been on Clown House all day long, so my memory and my mind is not as sharp as it is in the morning at this point. But, I think just knowing that everything in America will work out and not to get fooled by the word game. I like to bring up the debt a lot but I do thoroughly believe that we shouldn't fear money. We should fear the. We should be more concerned with the material world and less about the politics and the word games. Um, but in terms of the debt and inflation and empires and doing what is right, I don't think spending 2 trillion more than the 5 trillion we take in revenue a year is a good way to continue to proceed. And if you look at the Doge analysis and all the screenshots from the SAP system that Larry Ellison owns, or I think it's Larry Ellison, but um, Oracle. Oracle is big in the government with all this contracting and all this acquisition, and Doge has screenshots. It's all DEI woke spending and Guatemalan climate change education. Like, Necro, why would you want to graduate from college, get a job for say 70,000 a year, pay about 30, 40,000 in taxes a year, and know that your money is going towards this wokeism education scam spending, which is getting close to being uncovered as $1 trillion a year, and they're still canceling billions of dollars worth of contracts that are across all these federal agencies. So the scam is being identified, and hopefully they'll be able to recover any money that has already been sent out. But Necro, do you think it's fair that as a voter, you don't have any say into how this money is being spent? Doesn't it make you angry?
I mean, I know that there's been concern a lot of people have had about what is being taught in schools, things like that. I'm not really an expert. I do know one of the things that does concern me is that in places like Florida, where you had, like, for example, you had like the banning of books, like old classics, like like it was a book by Ernest Hemingway. There was also Aldous Huxley's Brave New World that was banned. These are classic literature books, and so why would the government have any, interest to want to ban these books? It is kind of, to me, the concern I have about banning education. But I think there are legitimate concerns about, when, sexuality should be taught to children, I think. But in general, I just think a lot of the talk about education, I mean, a lot of people, there's a lot of like fear mongering to be able to ban certain books that make certain people who are really white supremacists.
Well, do you know one of the only books ever banned by the federal government? Do you know the name of it, Necro?
I can't say that.
No, I'm sure there's a couple, but one of them is Irwin Schiff's The Federal Mafia, where he claims that the federal taxing authority is experiencing cognitive bias, or what does he call it? Hindsight bias, meaning it's not constitutional to tax us in the way that they're doing it. So if he died chained to a concrete slab in a prison because he's a tax protester, and he fought the judiciary and tax courts. So be careful who you pick fights with, because if they're more powerful than you, and lawyers and judges can chain you in a prison because you are complaining about the taxation, I mean, that's pretty immoral and rather fascistic to kill you because you're not in compliance. So I'm just saying, Necro, taxation is extremely important. You haven't worked 20 years yet and paid your dues per se in terms of income tax. Wait till you do it. You're going to regret every single filing, and you're going to say, this sucks. It's a lot of money that you lose every month in your payroll tax and at the end of the year. So it's a big problem, and you don't even realize it yet because it's not transparent. You don't feel the borrowing and spending yet because we are the global reserve currency. So it's coming. The day of reckoning is coming. And if we bite the poison pill now and realize if we do change now, it's better than change. Maybe it's better than change in the future. I don't really know. It's hard to know what the optimal economic, process should be. But I just say if you can't do it personally and just continue to borrow every single year unmatched with regards, to your revenue, I mean, it's just not ethical or moral. It's currency manipulation.
Ben,
Yeah, I mean,
so anyway, Necro, I would say like the fear that I'm hearing from you is more about like, is it right to ban something like To Kill a Mockingbird that I think parents can even. I mean, there's plenty of time to do reading with your kids, but what would concern me isn't so much of the classics that they're pulling, that you're saying, the quote unquote classics they're pulling out of schools. I would be more concerned about, like the gender queer and things like that they're indoctrinating in the schools. That is really basically, I can't see it's gravity when it comes to helping kids learn about our history, science, math, reading. But to further his question, since he asked silliness, I have to ask you, John, as my final question. So if elected, would you then want to, Tim Waltz, would you want to increase the amount of, say, tampon dispensers in men's bathrooms, the male gym and lockers, or not?
No, of course not. And any public official who would mandate that or spend your tax dollars on doing something like that should be publicly shamed and put on the internet for ridicule.
I'm moving back to Illinois after you get elected. I love it. Pray for you, John. I hope you do well.
yeah, I mean, ultimately, the reason why I'm not as focused on issues of those things.
Voice inflection.
I'm sorry, and as I used to a few days ago, you were starting to like my Stephen Hawking monotone voice. But anyways, so basically, I just see culture wars as completely unproductive, as do majority of Americans, and that's essentially the way I see with all these things. Not saying that they don't matter. It's just to me on like my priorities list with individuals, I'm much more concerned about John's selling point. I mean, even though my priorities on the debt isn't as high as conservative, I think it's a more significant concern because long term the debt is an issue. But yeah, it's more of a concern to me than these sorts of things that they're teaching in education. And you might say, Kitty, that for example, that To Kill a Mockingbird, if they banned it or something like that, that it doesn't have any effect on it. Well, the fact is, like George Orwell once said, that whoever controls history controls the future. And so if you have racist people who want children to not know about the history of racism, I mean, in Texas public schools, like they've removed they can't mention Nathan Bedford Forrest. So I mean, I'm really concerned about like children knowing our history. I think it's important for us to be able to address the issues on the past that have affected us today. So.
Would you say that the now is a compression of the past and the future, Necro, or is now just a culmination of the past?
Yeah, there's no such thing as history in the future. That the future isn't called history. The past is always history.
Okay, Stan, did you have a question for the campaign to elect John Kitover to Congress for the 16th District of Illinois?
No idea. I'm just trying to echo to the Negro about history. Right.
Did you say you wanted to ask a Negro about history?
Negro. I'm not using Negro.
Lay it on me.
Okay. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The Russia and U.S. was ally in World War II, but now, as in the media and a lot of the many medias, as if they are enemies. And Japan, right? Japan and U.S. fought a lot during the World War II, but now they are celebrating World War War II and World War II together. It's really bizarre.
Is that yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that's I think about history. There's actually a picture of Stalin and FDR and Winston Churchill. It's a picture I wish had aged better because essentially today though we can't frame it in the White House because the idea of the fact that we used to be friends with Stalin or we were allies with Stalin. The idea the enemy of my enemy is my friend doesn't really age really well, or at least in U.S. politics. So.
Okay, so this has been a money bomb for the campaign to elect John Kitover. I thank everybody who has donated. We're going to do a quick summary total here of how much we have raised.